Yo, this hot, this the spot, there it is, pod.com. We're interviewing the best comedians, so tune in quick and get your ears receiving them. We talking about life and life to stream right to you, from the microphone right to your home, dude. Side note, this might get embarrassing, but no, don't sweat, yo, cause there it is.
Welcome to the There It Is podcast, a comedy podcast to help you find your inspiration. I'm your host, Jason Farr. Let's do this. Thanks so much for joining us today. We have a really great guest in Jon Bander, who is an improviser, both musical and non-musical, a stand-up. He's done character work. He's super hilarious. We have a really great chat with him about those things and more. But before we get to that, a little business, I do want to send a big thank you to Sarah Alderman. Sarah Alderman Art is technically who supported the podcast. Thank you very much for doing that. You should check out Sarah's Instagram at Sarah Alderman Art and also at Sarah Alderman 1 because she also does stand-up. She seems cool. She seems like a good egg, and I love supporting people who support us. If you too want to support us, you can go to thereitispod.com and click on the support button. There are a couple of ways you can help us out. Now, recently, I told you all to run to Soho Playhouse in New York City to see our dear friend Haley McAfee's show and her children. She talked about the show a while back, and we finally got to see it last night. And look, we already knew Haley was super talented and amazing. It was beyond. And I literally thought at one point, she's going to win an Oscar one day. Like, she is going to do some big things. She is incredibly talented. This show is also, aside from being so very well made and performed, it's also very meaningful. It does talk about gun control and mostly about the culture around guns in our nation of America and the people who prop up that culture. We also got to hear from a couple of advocates because there was a talk back after the show with these advocates and Haley and her writing partner, Rosie Glenn Lambert. The people who sat in were Manuel Oliver, whose son was killed in the Parkland shooting, and Cameron Kasky, who survived the Stoneman Douglas shooting. And it was great to hear from them and to get advice on what we can do that is more meaningful and actionable than what we've been doing, because we have to change this culture so that we don't have so many gun deaths and so much gun violence in this country. So it was really, really great to see that. That talkback's not happening at every show. We just happened to pick one that it was happening at, and I'm glad that we did. And I hope you see the show if you are in New York or near New York. So it was really a powerful night, and I could not be prouder of our dear friend, Haley. She's so fantastic. If it's ever going up anywhere again, you've got to go out of your way to see it. So definitely follow her on Instagram as well, at Haley McAfee. And listen to the episode that she did about this show and her children. It's a really great episode. Also a really great episode, this one with Jon. Jon is fantastic. He is doing so much, and he's done so much in New York, and he's an incredible talent as well. I loved getting to talk to him and pick his brain a little bit here. Why don't we just get right to it? Here's my chat with Jon Bander. Bander, so great to have you here.
Dude, thanks for having me.
Of course.
Great.
I've been wanting to get you on for some time. I know that you're from New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Born and raised, or did you just end up in high school there?
Yeah, dude, born and raised, man. I am a Jersey boy through and through. It really, I love it here. I think there's just something about it that is wonderful. Like Bruce Springsteen is right.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what? I think I want to move back here at some point. There's just something about either a Boston or Jersey or Philly where you'll meet my favorite people in the world are like nice assholes. It's like people who are very, very lovely people, but they can bust balls, and they really like there's a part of their brain where they know the thing like that they shouldn't say, and they don't say it unless they're with friends.
I'll be honest. There are certain people like that who I've met in my life who other people would be like, oh, I don't know about this person. And then, then they would get a bad reputation. And then I would get around whoever the person is and be like, they're just direct.
Yeah.
They're very nice. They just also don't hold back honest appraisals.
Yeah. I actually think that's really good. Like, I definitely don't think, I'm not like somebody who's like, oh, I'm just telling it like it is, or whatever. But it is like,
yeah.
I'm not trying to be a dick.
Yeah, the people who say, hey, I'm just telling it like it is are not telling any truth. They're just being assholes.
Fair. It's also like, those are the people who are like, I don't have to worry at all about how anything is received. I can just say things and then you have to receive it the way I want. Like,
right.
It's sort of like if I'm a painter and I think of a great painting, but my brush hand is shit, I can just I can paint garbage and be like, no, you have to see it the way that you have to see, it's the Mona Lisa in my head. And so you have to hear it that way.
Right.
Or you suck at painting.
Exactly. But the nice assholes, they are fun to be around.
They really are.
They don't hold back and they are funny.
Yeah.
And what they are not holding back is not mean-spirited.
Exactly. They challenge you a little bit. They bust on you a little bit. They don't let you get like too self-righteous or too big in yourself. And I think that's great. Those are my favorite people.
Yeah, they're not trying to ostracize anybody. They're trying to bring people in.
Exactly. It's like, when you're kids, you learn to be polite around everybody. And then as you go on, your best friends are like the people you don't have to be so polite around.
Right. And like politeness, I've learned as a Southerner who moved to the North. I noticed when I got up here, I was like, gosh, being polite really gets in the way of comedy.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Like that thing that you're not supposed to say that the nice assholes will say, that's the funny stuff.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that needs to be said. But if you're trying to be polite, then you're not going to say those things. It's like, guys, we can say they're not mean-spirited and it's not untrue. So we could say it if it's not mean-spirited and it's the truth.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I actually think that's one of the things about improv too, is like, I think being too polite
keeps you on the sidelines.
Not only that, and I mean specifically in the way of like not allowing yourself to be misunderstood. Like, I think one of the gifts that any improvisers can give is saying little enough to be able to be misunderstood. Because like in life, we want to make sure that we're understood in the way that we
mean,
so that we don't seem rude or whatever. But that can often take like 12 lines. Whereas as an improviser, and I mean it, I don't mean this in like, my racial beliefs or whatever.
Right. Yeah. We're not saying like, again, not mean-spirited stuff.
What I mean is like, if I just look up and I'm like, whoa, that hat, like I could say like, that is beautiful. I've never seen that. Or I could leave it there and let them think like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Yeah, exactly.
I totally agree with that because I am one who will, out of that politeness, be like, but what I mean is this, and I don't, just so I'm not, and that totally gets in the way.
Yeah. Then you're already 6 lines deep, and then it's like,
right.
What does the other person respond to?
You're just shotgunning words at people, and they're like, I don't know what part you said a lot there. I don't know what to say. But improv very much is a reactionary thing. It's about feelings. And if you are too careful with your words and also are long-winded, then people don't have a chance to react and have a feeling about it.
Yeah.
So just like saying a thing and then just letting it be maybe wrong to them, that is always what leads to the funny thing.
Yeah, I agree, because the key is it's not how we necessarily want to be in real life, but when we're in improv, we got to see that as an opportunity.
Because it's a good opportunity if you go like, whoa, that hat. And if the person takes it, your character means it positively, but the person you're talking to, the character takes it the wrong way, then there's that moment of like, oh, that way. And that is fun to see.
Yeah. Because then they get to bring their thing onto it too, right? Where
Right.
it's like, you could be like, oh, it's a Stetson. Yeah, like it was my grandfather's or whatever.
Right. So now
Yeah.
it's like you've got this dichotomy. This person's reacting and affected. You're reacting and affected by how they reacted. And that's what improv really is. That's the core of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think like in a lot of ways, improv is about not being afraid of not knowing what comes next. And I think part of that is leaving yourself open. It's a lack of certainty that is a positive.
Right.
That kind of feeling and that kind of play is actually a gift for someone that you trust and for someone that you want to be playing with.
Yeah. I know you went to Rutgers
Mhm.
and like we're talking improv, you do musical improv as well, characters, stand-ups, you do a ton of stuff. Were you performing at Rutgers or before? Like when did you get into performance?
Oh, well, I did like a couple plays in high school. I
Mhm.
honestly don't remember how I got into them, which is crazy. I just don't I don't remember because I wasn't a theater kid. I wasn't like a musical theater kid which is funny because all my friends now are musical theater people
Mhm.
because
You do a lot
I
of
do
musical?
yeah. And so like I was one of those people who like my older brother got me into comedy. You know,
Mhm.
he's as responsible for like my interest in comedy as anyone else, but he didn't pursue it or whatever. And I was like, I think I'm funny. I think I could do some of this stuff, but nobody really ever does it. It's not a
Yeah.
career. It's not like, it's not like, or my parents aren't like, oh yeah, go be a, performer or whatever. So I wasn't really a performer. I guess like I had done that couple plays and I'm sure that it was like just friends of mine got me into it,
Mhm.
and it's like, certain roles like fell into because it was like we did Once Upon a Mattress
Mhm.
and everyone had to sing to audition, and this is like now almost like 30 years ago. And I still remember like being like many moons ago, like just singing so bad. They're like, well, you're the mute king. And it's a funny part. And so I was like, okay. And just sort of like fell into that, which is good. And then in college, a couple things happened. One was like I started booking events for Rutgers. I started to like get on the event programming committee.
Yeah.
It changed my life, honestly, getting on the programming committee because like I was like, oh, cool. These people bring in the comedians, they bring in the bands and stuff.
Mhm.
I want to be involved in that. And then like my second or third year, like I was like one of the chair people of the entertainment one. And at
Oh, wow.
Rutgers, they give you a lot of money. They were like, here's $107,000.
Wow.
Bring in comics and bring in a wide variety of events or whatever. And
Mhm.
one of the things that we had to book was like open mics. So I booked one at our local cafe in the student center. And I was like, well, since I booked it,
I can host
I
it.
might, like when the truth is like, I booked it so I could do it. It's like, I didn't have to go anywhere. We spent like $500 of everyone's money just so I could do that thing.
That's funny.
Yeah. And then honestly, one of the people who came to that mic was this guy, Julian McCullough, who's like a known touring stand-up now. He opens for Nate
Yeah.
Bargatze on like his
I opened for him once and
You open for Julian? Really?
or did I host that show? It was in South Carolina. It was like at the New South Comedy Festival
Oh
in
wow.
Greenville.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's like a known, like
Yeah.
national stand-up, great dude. And he just was like, after I did my set, which was like way too wordy, way too long or whatever, it was probably like a lot of fat jokes. He was like, I think you might have something. Like, I think you might want to try this. And then he told me there's an open mic at the comedy club and you should try this. I was like, wow, you bartend at the comedy club? Oh my God. And you talk to these comics or whatever? I was totally floored. I started doing stand-up. And then the second thing that happened was my brother's roommate in college was Chris Gether. So, yeah. So
Wow.
my brother's friends were all like, you got to check out UCB. You got to check out ASCAT. So I've been doing a little stand up and then I went to see ASCAT and whatever I was doing, I felt like a fraud. I felt like I was doing all right, whatever. But what I saw there seemed like pure magic. I was like, I feel like a street magician who saw a wizard conjure a lightning bolt.
Wow, yeah.
I was like, whatever you're doing, that's the next level of what I want to do, and I want to do that. And then I signed up for UCB classes, and that's how I got into performing.
That's great. Similar to my story, because I did stand up and then saw the ASCAT DVD and was like, same thing. I was like, that's the, because I took an improv class in college, but
where was this?
really
Where'd you
love
go?
it. I went to Winthrop University, and no shade on the instructor because she was a great acting teacher.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't really the best improv. It wasn't the best class for improv. And I mean, that's just I'm just trying to be honest. I'm trying to be a nice asshole right now.
I think it's good. I think that's exactly what,
It just didn't inspire me to continue with. I was like, oh, well, I'm glad I did it. One of my friends was in the class. A good friend of mine was in the class. That was super fun. But I was not like looking at it as a thing to do again. Then I saw the ASCOT DVD and I was like, it was that thing of like, now this is a sort of magic that I want to do. And I wanted to like, I love the form. I love the Armando. It's my favorite form. And that was what put the bug in my ear of like, yeah, you need to do improv when it becomes available to you.
Yeah, dude. I mean, honestly, I think it's a big deal. Like, I wouldn't have told you it was possible, except that I just saw it. I think it's so important for people to see what's possible.
Yeah.
Because I would have told you, like, I wouldn't have thought long form was at that level was possible, except that I just happened to go to school an hour away from some of the best in the world. It was pure luck. And once I saw that, I was like, oh shit, like I need to look at that. It was the same way that like the first time in like 2005 or 6 or whatever, I started class in like 2003 or whatever, and we were learning game and it was great. And it was like great. But then I'd heard about TJ and Dave and I was like, people were like, they're slow, but they're also funny or as funny or funnier. And I was like, no, I don't think so. And then I saw them and it like hurt my head.
Yeah.
I was like, how could this be as good or better
when it's
jokes
so
are funny, when jokes should be fast and fun, and it works on such a level that like feels so easy too.
We have the same taste because I also love TJ and Dave. I mean, Dave Pasquazi is my favorite improviser, but I also love Ben Schwartz. And they're polar opposites when it comes to approach, or at least like vibe on stage. You know what I mean? Like Ben Schwartz is a bit machine.
Yes.
And that is, you know, Dave Pasquazi is not trying to do bits.
No.
But it is that thing of like, I think slow improv, both slow improv and game improv can get a bad rap for different reasons, obviously. Slow improv gets the bad rap of like people who say like, oh, I want to do that. And then they just don't do what TJ and Dave are doing. They're just not making choices and they're just taking a long time in between saying anything. It's like, that's not at all what TJ and Dave are doing. They're not slow in that they are making a meal out of object work. It's super fast in the sense of like they're doing something every second. It isn't like seizing on a game, whereas game improv, the bad rap it can get is that it's forcing being weird. Like when people try to copy it but don't know how to do it right, they'll just force a weird thing in, and it's like, no, that it's got to be a funny thing that you are seizing on. You got to find the humor in something and relentlessly laser focus on that.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes game work.
Right. With a nod to making it also like realistic and understandable. Because it's also like, we've all seen like you can hit a pattern and if there's no reality or joy to it, you just see someone continuing to hit a button that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's like,
or it kind of works at best.
Yeah.
But it's still just like two people standing looking at each other, but they're not doing anything. Like the good improv, I've seen a ton of good improv at UCB.
Yeah.
And that ASCAT DVD, Like they're not just standing around trying to come up with the most clever lines to say to each other, which is how a lot of people do it the wrong way.
Right.
But they are trying as much as they can to play up the like something grounded. They are trying to ground it a certain way. It's just not the way TJ and Dave ground things.
I think really the issue with whatever you learn first, you're going to develop some of the bad habits of that, and then you'll correct eventually.
Right.
But it's fine. It's just when you're in that part where you're like, I'm in level 2 or level 3 or whatever, and it's like, you know, I met Lewis and Megan and a bunch of people, Lewis Kornfeld, Megan Gray for Magnet Royalty, and Kelly Buttermore, a few other people in my level 1 class at UCB. And we were working with Armando beforehand, and you know, so we learned this slow play stuff, you know, or whatever. And it's like, we would go out there and we'd be like, we're going to play slow. And we played slow and fucking boring. And it was like, truly like, we were like, we're really good. You know, ooh, well, God, like I'm really invested in this stuff. And the audience is like, who gives a shit? Give us something, please. God damn. Like you shouldn't be thinking this is that good. And, you know, eventually you correct and you're like, oh, I don't want to be boring anymore. I want to have fun the way these people are having fun. And then, you know, with game, you know, you can start and get very broken by the math of it, the pattern robot stuff. I like to say that like game is like butter. It's like you can put butter in all cooking and make it almost universally make it better, but you can't just cook butter. You have to add it to something else, right? Or it's
That's
like
such a good way to put it.
It's like you can add structure to something and it usually will help, especially if you're some creative or something, but you can't start from just structure and expect the thing to live particularly well.
Yeah.
Like you have to bring it to something else. So yeah, and that's the bad habit there. And then eventually you're like, oh, people don't laugh if I just say that same word I said 2 times before. They have to invest in me as a character. They have to invest in the reality of the thing. They have to forget and not try to get ahead of what I'm going to say next.
Right. The way I see it is good, slow improv is like a good play. And good game improv is like a great sketch. Or if to put it in like sitcom terms, it's like Cheers and 30 Rock. They're both sitcoms. They both are doing comedy. One has a different sort of feel just because they try to really sit in a sort of realism to let the humor come out. And the other is just like fast-paced joke every X amount of seconds sort of thing. Like set up something real quick and then just like do a big joke.
Yeah.
But still in both cases, the people are acting. They're still trying to play 3-dimensional characters.
Yeah. You know, and it's like, you can't really argue that either isn't funny.
Right. Exactly. That's how I feel. And like you said, you can have a favorite. You can have what's your cup of tea. But that's why I don't like it when people are like, no, this theater is doing it the right way and that theater is not. It's like, well, then why are both continuing to exist?
Yeah. I mean, I think for most people, you only get into that kind of gang phase. You only get into it for a certain amount of time and usually out of some need for help solidifying your own identity as part of a group. Something I needed when I was younger. I really needed these theaters to tell me that I'm funny and that I belong and stuff. Cause I didn't have my identity as a performer. And once I did, it was like, oh, cool. I'm happy to acknowledge the greatness of any of these places. None of them are evil. None of them are pure good. None of them are pure evil.
Yeah. There's somebody being a dick in one, in any of them.
Truly. And I'm sure I was that person at a certain point.
You know, you mentioned something like that at your final show in New York, your final like solo show where you did a character show. You said like, I've been difficult sometimes. And I was like, I mean, I don't know you super well and haven't worked with you directly, but like you've been pretty nice. So I don't know what you like.
Thanks, buddy. If your question is like, how have I been difficult? Spill the shit. 100%. I was young. I came from New Jersey by train to do stuff. I was late all the time. I had bad habits of like, I was young and at the time I had undiagnosed ADHD. One thing I love about ADHD is that we get to talk about time like we're Christopher Nolan villains, you know, or something, where we get to say things like time blindness, or like we get to introduce you to a concept of time that you don't know or whatever. But like I was, you know, I would show up I was pretty insufferable in this way. I would show up like 45 to 90 minutes late to a class or a rehearsal and then still try to act like a leader. So I would show up and I would be like, hey guys, we're not working that hard. Whatever. And in my mind, the two things didn't ever cancel out. It just was like, I was like, look, it would be great for all of us if I could show up and be the unbelievable leader that I am for all 2 hours. Unfortunately, today we only get 25 minutes, but let's use that time for me leading this stuff, So yeah, that was like one way. Sometimes I can, the nice asshole thing. Sometimes I can bite the hand that feeds me a little bit or just be difficult. Like I've often gotten the note to shorten my character pieces. A lot of times I don't. I can be a little self-indulgent as a performer. Some of that I would defend, some of that I wouldn't.
But every performer is that's every performer.
Yeah, yeah, I think I'm in a good place with it. For example, my buddy Eric Fuhrer, who's great, a wonderful director and stuff, when he was directing me one of these seasons, he was like, there's this part in my piece. He's like, you should cut this. You won't, but you should. And I was like, that's absolutely right. I'm not going to fight against that. I want to do it. And I'm happy to get the lesson from it of like, oh yeah, I should have cut that. But I feel strongly about it enough to want to give it a shot.
Yeah. And that's fair. Sometimes you get like, yes, the advice might be right, but sometimes it's good to feel that thing that you created, be like, all right, it's not landing with an audience. And now I know what that feels like. It's not even that you needed the confirmation to like prove the other person right or wrong. It's just, you need to know what it's like on stage to do it the way you're envisioning it, to adjust and learn.
Yeah. I think I'm a very, is it analytical as right brain or left brain?
I thought left brain was creative, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Then I'm a very math science person, or was, especially in school. Mm-hmm. And so I can be very mathematical and stuff. And I try and fight against the math all the time. And it's this, I do it less now, but it was like, it's been a very kind of quixotic battle that I fought where it's just like comedy isn't math. And I just like rail against. So sometimes I just need to reject the math version of it where it's like, it should be lean and thin. And to me, sometimes it's so lean and thin that it's dead. That there's no meat on the bones. You know what I mean? And so sometimes I just need to hear that. I just need to hear like, okay, it's just a little too fat. It's a little too, I think you get it. It's like, it could trim a little bit. Sometimes I need to hear that because I believe in it, or I just need to have that little quixotic battle of like, I think this might be worth fighting for, just in the idea of like, I don't want it to be formulaic. I don't want it to sound in a way, I think sometimes when you're doing especially your written work, sometimes if you have your voice, you can fall into almost a rhythm, and you can just hear a piece and it sounds like this. Mm-hmm. You can hear the like perfect mathematical, ironic detachment of it. I think there's a lot of that. That's good. I want it to live. I want it to have some flesh, and usually I'm a fat person, and usually I make fat characters because I want a little bit too much flesh on it.
I think a lot about this when it comes to music, I guess. Sometimes an artist's most interesting stuff is earlier in their career when they were willing to try anything and make some mistakes or make some stuff that just doesn't quite work, but there's something that's kind of interesting about that era for them. Yeah. And then when they get older and they're really good craftsmen, that's when it gets to be, when it comes to just how well crafted it is, it's their best work. But there's something less interesting about it sometimes with certain artists or just certain albums of theirs.
I think that's 100%. I think that is something where you can get into the craft and then lose I think it's flaw. I think it's like there's a certain amount of flaw that humanity has. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you'll see a person, I'll say with improv, but with music too, it's like where it gets so mathematical that you're like, that's the right answer. That's the right one. And it brings me no joy. Yeah. Because it's like a robot could tell you that was the right one. It was the right moment for that callback. Mm-hmm. It was like the perfect right moment. But there was no moment where I thought that you wouldn't pull that off because your mind is so laser on that you're never invested enough for me to stop viewing it as robotic.
Right. Yeah, it's that robotic nature of it that takes me out. Where it's
Yeah.
like, because there's no feel at that point. It's about, well, this is the right time to do it. It's like, yeah, but where are your instincts? At least with improv, where you are just flying by the seat of your pants. If you are just really feeling through the set with the knowledge of good timing, that feels right. But if it's just a matter of good timing, and this is when I hit this beat, and this is when you do that, then it gets pretty rote.
I mean, I think like once you learn the formula, once you learn the code and you learn how to read a show on different levels, not just like what do these scenes need, what are the choices, but like what does this show need? And then sometimes you can read it on an energy level and you think energy's the only thing. Like, I'll just make sure that the energy's good or whatever. And then you have that meter going. And then sometimes once you have those meters going and you see, oh, this needs this or whatever it is, you lose the flaw. You lose the honesty a little bit and you lose the flaw that are key in making maybe a slightly wrong move, but wrong in a way that affirms the humanity of it and your imperfection, which I think is the biggest thing in comedy is honesty and flaw. And I don't think the world believes that, especially the flaw part anymore. But I think that's key to audiences coming along with you as well.
It's sort of like when someone figures that move of like stepping out and talking to the audience and saying, has this ever happened to you? Like, and it's like, now that scene we saw, that crazy scene we saw, is really just a commercial, like that sort of twist in an improv show. And it's gotten to be like way overdone. For years, it's been a way overdone thing. And I've seen one of the best improvisers I've seen do that move. And I was like, well, the scene needed to be ended because it was getting to be chaotic and it needed something to wrap it up. But even just the way this improviser did it was sort of like, you don't even believe it. You're just trying to button this scene up so it could be edited on a laugh. And if an entire show felt like that, it would be like, oh my gosh, this is not great. I understand sometimes you got to do it. But somewhat of what we're talking about really happens with stand-up, which you've been doing for a while. You mentioned starting it in college, but lately you've been opening for Steve, is it Hofstetter?
Hofstetter, yeah.
Yeah. Who, even if you don't follow him on Threads, you see his posts because they always go viral.
Yeah, dude.
He's giving somebody the business on there all the time in a funny way, which I think is tough to do, to like point out hypocrisy in someone's shitty politics while also doing it in a funny way that doesn't feel too much like the problem with the way we engage on social media. How did you end up linking up with him and touring with him?
Sure. Well, so actually it was through improv. It was because the pandemic hit and I thought every single place that I've spent the last 20 years of my life has just shut down, is not coming back. The way I felt at the beginning of the pandemic, I think a lot of people felt, was I felt like, you know, in those, like, there was like a rash of like late 90s, early 2000s action movies where there would be the way the boss bad guy was killed was that somebody slashed a sword at them and they were like, I've got you. And then they were like, wait a minute. And then like they would feel a tickle at their throat and they would realize their head was cut off, you know, or something. And that's how I felt. I was like, I think I'm dead. I just don't know it yet. You know, like, or at least everything I had.
You were doing live stuff that was pretty much exclusively at improv theaters.
Truly, I mean, like I hung out 29th and 8th, sometimes all the way over 29th and 7th, and Gramercy a little bit and stuff like that. And I went to the bar around the corner and taught around there. And I thought just all this stuff is shut down. And all those restaurants and all that stuff, you know, I went, because when I went back there, it was not there anymore. So I was like, that's it. I just need a new job. One of my friends, Jarrett Berenstein, who's a great improviser, a longtime Magnet guy, was like, Steve's looking for a tour manager. I was like, okay, I might contact him. And then Jarrett was like, Bander, you don't want this job. This is like a 20-year-old's job. You're like 40. And I was like, you underestimate my options and stuff. I talked to Steve and he told me about the stuff. So I linked up with him. The truth is, a couple people I met through Magnet had opened for him. So I just started driving the van, doing the tour manager stuff. And part of it was just like, we were touring through COVID, was the Delta wave. So we were like masked up. His shows were actually doing great as well, but it was scary times. And so like just the fact that we could all bid around, we knew each other, I'm pretty good about like, look, I wanted to be on stage. Like I like to get laughs and stuff, but I'm not somebody who I want to be around the funny and I want to help create the funny as much as I can, but it doesn't have to be me. I don't have to be the stage guy. I learned that about myself. I learned it. I wish I had learned it a little earlier, but that's something where it's like my mind delights in working this way. And so the more I can do that, the happier I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I was good at my job, good enough at my job. I was a good hang. So it was like, great. And then eventually Steve was like, I'm going to let my tour managers, like, if you're a good comic or something, you can do 5 minutes. Let me know whenever you want to start that. I was like, great. I want to do it tonight and every single night. So I started opening for him or, doing 5 minutes or whatever, like tour managing.
Was there a big gap between doing stand-up and this?
In a lot of ways, there was like a 20-year gap. But in some ways, I had done it on and off, like mics and some shows or whatever. But basically, I had never done 3 nights in a row or 3 shows in a row or whatever in 20 years.
Yeah.
And so, part of it was just getting to learn that and getting my material out and then just being able to have a writer's room there and just bit there. So starting from about April of 2022, whenever I've been touring with him, I get to do now about 10 minutes or so, 5 or 10 minutes, which is like great. I get to learn from these great guys and stuff. And it was kind of it's great. It's awesome. And it's hard. And it really pissed me off at first because I have 20 years of stage experience. People have loved me on stage. I know my persona. I know how people get me. I know them on my side. So I'm like, man, this can be so easy. I have 20 years of instincts. People are fucking love me already. They're going to love me on stage. And they didn't. And I was like, oof, this is so hard. And what I had to learn was like in stand-up, I'd been doing improv where you could be whoever you want anytime.
And you'd been doing character stuff. So it's also you're playing a character. And while your brand of humor was coming out, it's different in stand-up.
People believe that when you're doing stand-up, you're getting this person that's on stage and the version of them that you assume based on what you see and hear, especially originally. So like at first you have to start within the parameters of what they think already in a lot of ways.
That's why a lot of stand-ups go up with a joke about how they look.
Exactly. 100%. They're like, before I can get into just purely my mind, I want to acknowledge what you're seeing here. And I want to make a bridge between what I actually like to talk about or think and feel and the person that you're seeing up here.
Right.
And it's considered hack in a lot of places, but it's also just in some ways necessary, like at least to have them know you in a certain way. It doesn't have to be about your physical appearance or whatever, but sometimes it's an easy way to get that out of the way. I used to be very judgmental about, that's another way I was kind of insufferable was like, I used to, sometimes we'd be on teams, and everybody would be like, how we feel about the show? And some people would be like, I had fun or whatever. And then they'd be like, how'd you feel? And I would be like, we had a bad show. And I think we should go to the bar and let me explain for hours why none of us should feel good about that show.
Oh my God. Yeah, that would be tough.
Fucking awful.
Yeah.
It's horrendous. Yeah. And, and I'm glad, I'm not glad about the way that I did it, but I'm glad that for a while there, I really cared so much about being good.
Yeah, no, there is a balance to find, right? Because like some people you could lie to yourself either way. I mean, there are times where especially when I was doing stand-up, where I would, as soon as I was done with my set, I'd be like, that didn't go well. And then when I started going through joke by joke, what the audience response was, I was like, oh, all of these actually got laughs. Maybe just when I was up there, I was wanting them at certain parts. I just need to adjust the joke.
Mhm.
But I didn't do bad necessarily. And then there are, of course, those times where a show at the improv set did not go well.
Mhm.
And we're all like, yeah, good show, good show, good show. Well, we know that it wasn't.
Yeah.
What we
Can I
really should say is, hey, we got up there. Good for us for getting up there and doing 25 minutes. But,
Mhm.
we say good show to mean that's like, no, we shouldn't say that.
Well, I have a bunch of opinions on that. I think it depends. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Two things. One is, I think there are only two kinds of veterans. I think there are were we good veterans and I had fun veterans. And it's like, which one are you?
Oh, I've
Does that
never
make
thought
sense?
about it. I don't think I go, did I have fun? I must be a were we good veteran because I cannot think of a time after a show where I thought, well, you know what? I had fun.
Hmm.
I never think of a show like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that makes me a, were we good?
Yeah. Where are you on rehearsals? Are you a teams need to rehearse person, or are you a just show up and play person?
Well, now I'm show up and play, but if I were on a house team, then we were doing my last house team. We were doing 3 rehearsals a month because that was the requirement. But before I was like fine with doing 4.
Mhm.
I think rehearsals need to change. That's probably my real opinion. Is that rehearsals for most teams need to alter because if it's a team that's all of the players have been performing together for a long time, they just need to get shots up and like keep in rhythm with each other. It's not that they need to learn structure or
Mhm.
learn what improv is. And so many rehearsals are set up like that for players, like, and it's like, well, no, they know how to do improv.
Mhm.
They just need to keep playing with each other regularly so that it feels more and more like their rhythm together feels more second nature and so that they have
Mhm.
more second hand. But that's my opinion. What do you think?
I actually agree with that statement about rehearsals needing to change. I think that's fine. And I think we're in agreement of like, it depends on the team. If it's if it's
Brand
a,
new
let's
team.
say a weekend team where you're like, we're showing up and people have different lives or whatever and different ways they can do it. And we're just showing up and we're playing. I think it depends on the culture. If that's the culture of the team and it works and it wouldn't work any other way, then I'm good with that.
Mhm.
But if it's a house team or something, or a team that's continuing to kind of push themselves about like
Yeah.
where they can take this and where they can go, then yeah, absolutely rehearse. There was only like a few years in there where I was on a team that put the standard above everyone else. And it wasn't always like nice. Like we cut a few people that wanted to still be on the team and stuff, and it
Mhm.
was just like didn't work. But now at the end of all things, at the end of sort of my more competitive phase of it and stuff, I am so proud of the fact that for a few years there, I was on a team that really tried as hard as we could to put a standard above everything else and really just like tried to be great and as good as possible. Because I don't think you don't get as many years as you think that
Right.
you will of that being the case where you're on a team where everyone is pushing in the same direction.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad, at least for a team or two, we took advantage of that for a few years. Like, very
Absolutely.
proud. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes complete sense because you really don't get as much time as you think you'll get. You know, my last team, we probably could have used some more like, hey guys, let's get on the same page of pushing forward for being stronger together. But, dynamics are different and where people are in their lives can affect that, your ability to do that. And that's fine. That's life.
It truly, I mean, it's also like, I think the world is a little colder and
Yeah.
meaner than it was like 20 years ago when
Yeah.
I started. And so it was a little easier not easy at any, but it was a little easier to skate by as like a fucking loser.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, than it's harder now in many ways. But yeah, recognizing if you have that opportunity when you do, I think is such a huge thing. And if any young improvisers are listening to this, I hope you do. If your team is all pushing in the same direction and you guys just want to get better and you're at that moment, like, that's a blessing. As long as it's not like fake, as long as you're not like, we should do this, and then most of your team is like, we don't want that.
Right. Yeah.
But if you have that team, try and push a little bit, try and be like, run with it, because you'll be thrilled later on that you did.
Absolutely. Well, we've reached the end of the episode, and I do like to create something with guests. And I kind of want to ask advice here, like your opinion on something.
Sure.
How do you think people should go about trying to find their voice? Because we talked a little bit about that moment when someone like gets how they come across on stage, or gets what their thing is on stage and what lands with people. And that is one of the most elusive things for people who start doing stand-up or improv. But it is a superpower to have, and helps lead people to success. What methods do you think there are of finding that?
So I think it's a great question. I think I have a pretty practical way to go about that rather than a very metaphysical way or something. Good. Which is just, I think the first step is do too much. Like, get involved, do too many mics, do too many shows, do too much stuff if you can, and then see what you quit. I think that is the first step in trying to figure out what your voice is, because you will start to see what's more important to you than other stuff, and you'll realize there's not enough time and there's no way to be perfect at everything, because you're going to make choices as to what you care about more than anything else. This happened to me in an Ed Herbstman masterclass, where he was like, we did this scene. It was me and someone else like laying on the top of a car. And he stopped the scene and he goes like, hey, everybody, like, let me ask you, why is Bander good? And first of all, just like heartful, because this is so many years ago and I still remember it. And somebody was like, because he listens to you. And Ed was like, yeah, he listens. And then Ed said something where he was like, I'm not, still take his class. I'm not trying to give away the master class for free. But he was like, there's a bunch of you that have been doing this 5-6 years, maybe something like that. And like, at that level of experience, you've taken the classes, you've done the shows, you're on performers. There's nothing that I know that you don't. And so I was like, okay, well, he's great. I'm not great. How did he get great if we know the same stuff? And why aren't I great? And I was like, well, I'm not great because a lot of times I'll get the note that's like, you should say something quicker. You should be faster, give a detail or something. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. I just was told that the reason that I'm great or that I'm good is that I listen to you, right? So if I prioritize listening, there's just no way that I'm ever going to perfectly get the balance of when I should listen and not say anything and when I should say something. And I was like, well, then that's, I guess, is just a choice. That is just a thing of saying like, I am going to listen and respond slower. And sometimes that means I'm going to not say the thing or not be quick enough on the response as I should. And maybe that'll be a mistake, but it's not based on a flaw. It's not based on something I don't know. It's based on a choice. And that was the moment where I was like, I realized what it takes to have your voice. It's when you've been doing it long enough that your flaws or the things that you choose, the X-Man that you choose to be, is not all of them. It's because of a choice, not because of some deficiency or something like that.
That's great.
And so I think by starting to do too much and seeing what you quit, you start to say like, this is what I want to do. I can't be perfect at all this stuff. This is the stuff that I seem to respond to, and this is the stuff I want to do more than others.
There it is. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, Jon.
I have really enjoyed this. I really loved it. Yeah.
I love that at the end about it's a choice. You know, you can do this thing and use it when you feel like it's useful. It's not a flaw. It is what people dig about you. Great advice from Jon. Follow him on Instagram at Jon Bander. You can see Jon perform on the musical improv show at the Magnet Theater called Premiere. It's on Friday nights at 7:30, right before my show, the Friday Night Show. And this Friday, the shows are free, so please come check both of those shows out. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at There It Is Pod, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at There It Is, and follow me on Instagram and Threads at Jason Farr Picks. Also subscribe to our Comedy Lifestyle newsletter and support us if you can. We have a Patreon and a PayPal. Go to thereitispod.com for newsletter and support info. Links in bio. Until next time, be good to each other. It's a moral imperative.
The music for the theme song was created by Neil Brooks. The rap was written and performed by Nick Acevedo. The logo for There It Is was created by Jeff Prater. The There It Is podcast is produced by Jason Farr.